Yes guys, how's it going? Welcome back to a new video in what has been a fairly mad 24 hours in the world of Newcastle United. A £45 million bid going in for Elanga. It got rejected. We're already being linked with 2 or 3 new right wingers. We're pushed in for Scavini from Atalanta. They said they weren't interested. Of all the reports in the last 24 hours, this one for me makes the most sense, and it's that Mark Hardy at the Times reporting that Newcastle United are set to offer Alexander Isak to become the highest paid player ever in the history of Newcastle United. If you want to see that happen, drop a like on this video. Yes, hope you guys have been enjoying your week sat here on what is quite a warm Wednesday afternoon, and as I say, of all the reports that have been flying around, this is the one. This one's almost put out there to be like, oh my God, Isak's going to become the highest paid player ever. Yeah, he should be. I hope he is. And I would love it if Newcastle could get this deal done. It has been, yeah, as I say, a wacky few days. Some of the stuff on social media has made me laugh, to be honest. Some of the Liverpool fans are saying that they want Isak, Newcastle fans telling them to get lost. And obviously we had a lot of that throughout the season. It quietened down for the start of this window. But as we approach the new PSR year into July, because that's the thing, Liverpool have already spent a fortune. They've already spent close to 200 million in the window already. But technically speaking, from the 1st of July, I know we talk about it a lot. We talk about Newcastle waiting for July to hit that new PSR year. Other teams are going to do it as well. And that has kind of ramped up a little bit with teams saying that, well, they'll have more funds available. It's been spoken about a lot. And if Isak were to go, it would need to be game-changing money. You know, we're talking 150 million plus 200 million. But what can Newcastle do? Well, what they can do is they can offer Isak a deal that will, you know, keep the man at the club. He's got 3 years left on his deal. Technically speaking, we don't have to do anything, but we know what it is. Money talks. Want to keep the player happy. Want to maybe even extend his contract a year. And doing so and making him the highest paid player at the club ever, I think makes as much sense as any. So the reports are that at the minute, it's kind of like Bruno and Gordon and maybe even Tonali at the top on around 150 grand a week, with Joelinton not too far behind. And then they reckon Isak's actually below all of them on around 120. The reports are that Isak would move up to 150, if not even higher, on this new proposed contract by Newcastle United. And you've got to say he deserves it. He has been the man, or a massive part of the side in us winning that Carabao Cup, scored the goal against Liverpool in the final to bring us our first domestic trophy in 70 years. He was the man who got, you know, all the goals this season. He's got us back into the Champions League. And as much as I've just said it already, technically speaking, Newcastle don't really have to do anything. He's got 3 years left on his deal. Now, this situation could be different. If he's like had a year left on his deal or 2 years left on his deal, maybe Newcastle would feel slightly more threatened by the prospect of having to let him go, because if you don't let him go, then he goes down to a year. What's his worth going to be? And you've got to be sensible about the situation. But I think right now, with 3 years left on his deal, Newcastle don't have to let him go. But what we can do to try and appease the player financially, reward the player, is move his wages up. And while we're there, stick an extra year on his contract. That would hopefully appease Isak's agent. You know, I don't know, in this world, you like to hope that Isak's fairly happy where he is. I mean, as I say, people online saying Isak loves wearing red and that's why he wants to go to Liverpool. Some of the stories have just been hilarious. But in reality, what's going on behind closed doors, we don't really know. But what we do know is that Isak probably deserves to be the highest paid player at the club right now. You know, you look at what the likes of Alan Shearer having it written into his contract, that he would always be the most, well, that's the rumour, isn't it? That he would always be the highest paid player at the club. We'll bring somebody new in and Shearer gets an extra 20 grand on his contract because it was written in. Honestly, I give Isak the world. Eddie Howe spoke about this provoked as well. Eddie Howe spoke about this in one of his interviews. They asked him about kind of what's it like bringing players to Newcastle, what's it like bringing players up to the north, and he went, well, you know, we've got to compete on wages. And everyone's going, what? We were on about the quayside in the beach, not the money. So Eddie Howe's, it's obviously on his mind. It's obviously something that he's thinking about. This idea of Newcastle suddenly offering Isak a new deal, it's not a new thing. This is something that will have been being talked about probably all season. And it's probably what's in the back of Eddie Howe's head, is to show that we mean business and that we are willing to not just push the wages into new players. So I think that's a big point as well, being able to compete. Do I want to give Mbeumo 350 grand a week? Absolutely not. You've seen the issues they're having with the likes of a Sancho and Rashford because they've come in, they've got paid, and now they don't want to be there anymore. And they can't get rid of them because they're paying them too much money. So I kind of like the fact that Newcastle aren't over and beyond in this world where we're paying players who don't deserve it, but I think Isak does. And with all of this noise, what it would also do is just let us kind of crack on. If we could announce that Isak's got a new deal, got a new year on his contract, and we can kind of move on. A lot of the reports coming out from the Liverpool, Arsenal side seem to be more kind of social media driven than actually like reports or journalists pushing it. But as I've said already, Isak's a fantastic player. I think every team in the world probably wants Isak, and if a game-changing bid came in for him, I would love for us to shake our heads and laugh it off. But it's football, it's money, and arguably, as they say, maybe every player could have a price. The thing is with Isak, that price is astronomical. I mean, yeah, what I want to concentrate on this video is the positives, because we had enough weird and wonderfulness yesterday. So the positives are that Newcastle are in talks with Isak to get this new contract done, and we can take a step in the new direction. You're looking at some of the figures that are being talked about. 200 million, across PSR. That's $1 billion for us to spend in the next 5 years. Like, yeah, because you pay it off over 5 years, so it's not actually $1 billion, but like the way you can kind of funnel it, or over 3 years, because obviously you spend the money up front and then you pay it off over time, and we'll hopefully make another. So yes, it's 200 million to spend, but also to fix Newcastle's constant PSR issues. That kind of money is game changing. I think for me at this point, it's believing Eddie Howe and what Eddie Howe can do. I don't think Eddie Howe would want him let him go at this point where we are right now. For me, it really makes no sense to allow arguably one of the best strikers in the world to leave the club, and that's why I'm very positive and happy to hear that we are taking steps to give the guy a new deal. If some sort of astronomical bid like that came in, I think I believe in Eddie Howe. I don't want it to be another situation where Eddie has standing on the footsteps of St. James's Park and we're asking him why we sold Andy Cole, or whatever it is like that. Why have you sold Isak? It's because the money will go back in, the money will go on new players. I mean, God help us, the issues we're having with bringing players in at the minute. How would we ever replace them? That's obviously the big problem. But I just can't see it happening. I think the trust from Eddie Howe and the owners would be broken if they turned around and went, oh yeah, we're going to let him go, unless Eddie Howe okayed it. You've got to think he's the man in charge of that one. And I think for us right now, it makes the most sense. Give him a new deal, reward him on the money, give him an extra year on his contract. It gives us security around how much he's worth. Because if he doesn't sign a new deal, if he doesn't get an extra year on, and it rolls around into next year, that 200 million all of a sudden, fair enough, he's a fantastic player, but with 2 years left, and then it goes to a year, and then you worry he might leave for not. It's football politics. Talks of a new deal, massive, massive, massive positive for Newcastle. Drop a like on this video if you want to see Isak sign that new deal. If you have an alternative view, I would love to hear it. If you think selling him for 150 million or whatever crazy fees that are being talked about could actually benefit us, could actually be a good thing. If you have an alternative, I want to hear it in the comments though, because as I say, I just can't see it happening. I can't, it's not Football Manager. You can't just sell someone and just go, I'll go and buy new players. We can't even, we can't buy anyone regardless at the minute without having to replace. You can't replace him. And going into a Champions League, it's just not the right time. Not the right time. Give him the money. Make him the highest paid player ever. And maybe just a new structure to the wages is what Newcastle needs to kind of take that next step forward. Thoughts and comments on the new Isak deal. As I say, drop a like if that's music to your ears as it is to mine. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you're new. And I'll catch you later.